I didn't intend on laughing to start this episode of Damian and DEO, but here we are on youtube.com as well as on anchor.fm, your one-stop shop for podcast needs. Damian at DamianG347, my friend DEO, who on my end looks like a figment of my imagination because the focus is not there.
Yeah.
But that's fine because today is, and with Mondays, folks, you know, we talk about nerd culture, video games, anime, and the like. And thanks, shout out to our boy Eugene, who decided to submit a topic for today. Our topic is, and I'm going to say this, the word GOAT gets thrown around a little too liberally from some people. Everything's the GOAT. This is the GOAT. That's the GOAT. You can't have more than 5 goats. That's a herd. That's not a goat. So let's just start there. So when people say, "Hey, that's the GOAT. This is the GOAT,"
right?
So thanks to Eugene's suggestion, we decided to tackle gaming goats.
Goatdom.
Goatdom, yes. And we don't mean the actual animal. We're talking about greatest of all time. So we're going to take that and we're going to paraphrase it a little bit and make it more about our gaming goats, our loves, our must-haves, the things that brought us to the gaming dance, as it were, that still for us hold up in our memories, if not even so, the games themselves.
Yep.
So when you hear people say best game of all time, DEO.
Best game of all time, right?
Yes, the greatest game of all time.
Right.
What in your own criterion qualifies greatest of all time?
One, it has to have, like, greatest of all time has to have wide appeal, right? Has to have mass appeal. That's one thing. It has to have mastered whatever platform or genre of game that it's in. It has to master that. It has to not have the flaws that a lot of the other games in that same genre have, right?
Okay.
And it has to have something unique about it, right? Something about it has to be unique that makes it stand out against a bunch of other things, right?
Okay.
So, like, and like that's for me, like, rating like the game being like the GOAT is, for me, it's like it's a fool's errand, honestly, because everything's subjective, and you know, some folks love a specific genre, so there will be a game in that genre that they love that's like that's the greatest game of all time. But it's like, all right, that's subjective. You know, you might like love Ridge Racer or some shit like that.
Wow, that's the first of the day. Wow,
right. So like, you might love that game. Is that the greatest of all time? By most people's standards, no. But like, even that, like, it's because you can take 20 people and be like, all right, what's the greatest game of all time? All 20 might give you something different.
Of course.
Like, you know, it's one of those things. For me, I had to think about this.
Okay.
And I had to really sit down and be like, okay, what game did I like play and like really get lost in that I could pop in right now and I'd be like, oh yeah, I love this. And I actually had to settle on Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
Wow.
Because it was innovative in a lot of ways. So like, I love open world games, open world sandbox games. And that was like the first one that like gave us a huge scale on things, right? Like, it was massive scaled, and it also had multiple genres of gaming inside of the game. You had races, you had puzzles, you had all of these different aspects, and the fucking soundtrack is fucking amazing. So like, it wasn't just, you had racing, you had flying. It's a shoot 'em up. It's a beat 'em up as well. It's all these things, and it's a great story as well. It was the first time seeing a black protagonist with lingo that was African American lingo, and it was something that we could relate to. And yeah, for me, that would be my GOAT game because I played that for like 3 years. I would always just go back to it. I could go back to that. Matter of fact, I went back to it about 4 or 5 years ago, and I replayed through the whole thing all over again, and it still holds up. Like, of course, the graphics are not that great compared to now, but it is what it is. But as far as like storytelling goes and all the other stuff, it's great. It was great. So that's for me. That's my, if I had to, Supreme Court on the stand, be like, hey, what's your greatest game? I'd probably go with that. It's probably like close second would probably be Ocarina of Time.
Okay, that's on a lot of people's list, so I'm not surprised by that. Truth be told, I will admit this to the audience. I've only played to its completion one Zelda game, and that is Link to the Past.
Yeah, I believe that.
That's number 3, right? That's how old I am. That's Link 3, right? Zelda 3? Yes.
I don't even know.
Because I remember when I worked at Funko Land, and yes, kids, Funko Land was before GameStop. And,
Funko Land.
That was my first job where I was in management. So that for me that will always be one of my goats, is working at Funko Land in the middle of fucking Christmas in the Manhattan Mall in New York City. Man, I still have in the back of my brain that whole sales pitch when people call. Thank you for calling Funko Land Manhattan. Vegan, how can I help you? Like, I still got the customer service voice of that shit.
So all right. So there was Legend of Zelda.
Yes.
The Adventure of Link.
That was stupid.
A Link to the Past. So yeah,
yes.
That was SNES. And then Ocarina of Time. The Majora's Mask. I didn't like Majora's Mask. I hated the whole aspect of it being like timed. No. Mm-mm. I want to be able to explore everything. Fuck off.
Oh, you mean before the ugly smiling planet kills you?
Yeah. Screw that shit.
Yeah. So I've never been a big fan of the Zelda series. In terms of Grand Theft Auto, I got in at part 3. So, Liberty City, Claude was the main and protagonist, I guess, if you want to be technical.
Right.
I got into it there. I burned so many hours just side missions, and then putting in cheat codes, because when you get to a certain age, kids, you don't want to spend 150 hours playing video games.
Yeah, no.
You don't usually. So, because, expects life and things and food and dating and other things.
Yeah, I just want to go in and like fucking race and hit people and shoot some shit.
Right.
Like, give me a rocket launcher.
Yeah. So I would input all the codes for fucking Grand Theft Auto 3, and I'm over here just blowing stuff up and lowering down my wanted level from infinite to 0 every single time. And that's how I got through it. And then that was the first time for me that we talked about this last week, gaming soundtracks started to be a thing in my rating system. Sort of, okay, does this detract from the game? Does this add to the game? Do I give a shit? So being able to, like you said last week, listening to talk shows while driving around, or hip hop music, or opera, or some.
Damn, I forgot about the opera channel.
They had the opera channel.
Yeah.
And before Vice City, they had the 80s channel before Vice City.
Yeah, they had the shit that they could barely get a license for.
Yes. But that's my, on those 2 games in particular. But for you, like, these are cultural. These are cultural connections.
Yeah, like that was, because I remember on San Andreas specifically, that was the first time we had like a real reggae station where it was like for real, legitimate licensed stuff, classics and bangers from the 90s. So it was nostalgia for me as well, because this was the music that I grew up on. But it also had, it had an insane amount of stations for what it was compared to Vice City and for GTA 3. But yeah, like Vice City was Vice City still probably has the best soundtrack of any game ever created. Period. It is a time capsule of the 80s. It's fucking perfect.
That is a good way to describe that. A time capsule
on every fucking station, and even like the disc jockeys that they had were fucking amazing as well. So yeah, that was but they were cultural milestones with a lot of this stuff. Like I know for me, like I said, first time being able to play as an African American character that was not like that was layered, right? That was the first time that we really got that in a game. And for them to be you didn't switch off to play as anybody else. You were that character the whole time. You had moral conundrums. You know what I'm saying? Like it was family struggles and such and betrayals and this is that and the other. It was great. It was just great.
Well, it also gave birth to one of our favorite, I guess, society's favorite memes of, oh shit, here we go again.
Here we go again. Yeah.
Wasn't Samuel L. Jackson the crooked cop in that game?
Yes.
Wow. Think about that. Samuel L. Jackson in a video game.
In a video game. It was great. Like everybody was perfectly cast in this shit. It was just great. Like it was just really great. Just really great. That was that was the first time seeing like something on a grand scale on a video game because like Grand Theft Auto 3, you could zip around the city in 10 minutes.
Yeah, because it was locked off for the most part.
It was locked off, right? So it would be like maybe 10, maybe 15 if you go the long route. Like on a bicycle on Grand Theft Auto, you had to pedal all the way up a mountain and then all the way down the other side of a mountain. The shit took fucking like 45 minutes. So like you had this massive fucking scale as like in a way that we had never seen before in a video game.
Right.
So yeah, it was just dope. It was dope.
So I guess my next question, and I'll respond with my GOATs of all time or whatever, but I guess my next question to you is, when you're playing an all-time favorite, or before it even gets to that level, do you have a moment while you're playing it where you say, oh, I'm playing history here, like this is a big deal?
I think I've only had that happen like once or twice. Okay. I can't think of anything where like too many outside of Grand Theft Auto where it was like, no, let me not say that. Need for Speed Underground. When I played that, for me, that's the GOAT. That's like the first Need for Speed, I think it was Underground that came out, because this is nostalgia attached to it for me.
Of course.
The fact that you could like super mod out your car, there were all types of different cars and shit that you could get, and like soundtrack was actually pretty fucking banging as well. Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition. Yeah, that's right up there as well. But like, it was, banging ass soundtracks. You could mod shit out more so on Grand Theft Auto, Need for Speed Underground. But yeah, like for me, because it was when you can like customization is important to me. A lot of the time. Oh, did you freeze? I think you might have froze.
And we're back.
Here we go. You froze.
Sorry about that, everybody. For some odd reason, we both went out at the same time, which was weird. That almost never happens. So Midnight Club Dub Edition.
Yeah.
For me, was a game that I spent a good chunk of time, because I said, remember earlier today, I told you I don't really like racing games, but the soundtrack, and this is why video game music is important, because you have to keep playing the same goddamn board all over for purposes, time trials or whatever. You want to be able to change the music up.
Right.
And for me, hearing the big timers while driving my car around,
for me,
or Jam Rock playing in the background.
For me, it was Beanie Man, King of the Dance Hall on that one.
Oh, I love that.
If that came on, I'm winning the race. Like there were certain tracks on these things when like, especially if it's a real song, right?
Yes.
You win this shit Like if I hear it, I'm winning. Like so for me, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Kool and the Gang Summer Madness came on,
oh, I love that fucking song.
There was no way to beat me. It was impossible to beat me. I was invincible if that song came on. Didn't matter what was happening. I was invincible. I would escape the most, like I would have 5 stars and I would still evade the shit if Summer Madness came on. Once Summer Madness went off, then I fucking got caught.
And we're back.
The battery was taken out of my back. But like,
that's funny.
But yeah, it's like far as like the whole history thing, like I've only had that happen a couple times, and Grand Theft Auto Vice City was one of those things because like it was the first time, even though the graphics were still piss poor compared to what they are now, just driving down and like, you know, you're driving down the, you know, strip in Miami and like you can see Eugene agrees with me, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Yes. But like
agreed. See, yes, Eugene does know. Yes, and by the way, I'm gonna blow her spot up right now because my business partner Sarah decided to text me in the midst of this episode, and I'm gonna shout you out and say she thought we were referring to a GOAT simulation game when.
GOAT Simulator is up there. GOAT Simulator is.
Wait a minute, this is a game.
So basically, it is you have a goat. And you just like sling him into shit. It is mindless stupidity, but it is so goddamn fun. It is one of the it's legitimately one of the most fun things I've ever played. It's a trash game, but oh my god, it is like you just take a goat and you just ram it into stuff. It's
wait, are you driving the goat?
Yeah, you're controlling the goat. So like you're running around, hitting shit will hit you back. And like you're just trying to like accrue as many like points as possible. It is so stupid, but it's fun as hell.
Eugene said there's a Goose Game.
Oh yeah, the Goose Game is yeah.
Wait, there's like a whole line of these things?
Yeah. So like mindless stupid games are like a trend now. So I don't mind them, you know. Dude, like I will sit there and I will play some dumbass stuff like. I wasted quarters upon quarters on like Metal Slug and shit like that for the longest time. And those games are dumb as hell. Like, so it's like, why would I not, you know, buy $4 or $5 on this stupid game that makes me laugh? So yeah, but
that reminds me when they came out with the Burger King Sneak King that was given to you at Burger King. It's like, wait. The Burger King Sneak King is creeping around? Like, that's the whole game?
Shout out to all of the products and companies that decided to make fucking video games in the 90s. But, you know, just because that was how you got shit. If you had a movie coming out, you had to have a video game and you had to have toys. You couldn't have one. You had to have all 3. Chex Mix had a Doom ripoff.
Time out. Wait, what?
Bruh, what? Chex Mix had a Doom ripoff.
So Eugene says, I would enjoy the Goose Game because the Goose is an asshole.
Yeah, the Goose is very much an asshole. It's great.
Nice. The Goose would fit in with us then. Great.
Yeah, so let me show you real quick this game.
What the hell is this?
Yeah, it was a Doom ripoff.
What is this crap?
That Chex Mix came up with. It was fun as fuck though, and it was free.
It's like, did you have to download like 3 proofs of purchase or something?
No, it just straight up came in the box, bro. Like there was a period of time when like companies would just give shit out. Like they would just give it away. And that was one of them. They gave that game away inside the box of Chex Mix. Played the fuck out of that game too.
Chex Mix Doom. Go
just because it was cheap. It was
cheap entertainment.
Cheap entertainment. You could walk like just sit there and play the shit the whole time. And it had cheat codes too. Basically the same cheat codes as the Doom game. So you can go in there. I had all the things. I had like this massive. I was inside of like this giant Chex Mix mech suit, fucking everything up. Yeah, buddy.
Oh my God! See, these are not goat games. These are games with goats. These are a different classification.
A different classification of things.
Different classification of goats in games. So for me, as we all know, my old ass started with Pong. Actually, no correction. The Atari 2600, and I started with E.T., which I've talked about on the show before. It's not the worst game ever made, but I started with that.
It's there.
It's up there. It's up there, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. I will die on my grave saying that.
It is.
It's not as bad as Super 64. I will tell you that till the day I die.
It might be.
We will agree to disagree on that one. Oh, and I can see you now. You're clearer now. Hello, sir. Good to see you. Hola.
Come on,
so as we progress through the Damian history of video games, just my GOAT games, I didn't really start paying attention to status or what games make me feel until the PlayStation 1. Because I remember I graduated from high school, and as my present, my father and brother my father bought me a PS1, but my brother decided to buy me 2 JRPGs because he remembered I used to love the Super Nintendo Breath of Fire games. So he thought, hey, Damon likes Asian culture. Let's buy him these Asian looking RPGs. He might like these. And what were those 2 games, you might ask? One was Wild Arms, the original one, which I love. I will always love the original Wild Arms. And one that is very divisive amongst video game players and RPG players and the like. And we talked about it earlier. Final Fantasy VII. So it is a very divisive game. Some people love it. Some people think it's overrated. Some people think the remake shouldn't have came out because it's just a here nor there. But for me, what makes a GOAT game is a story that engrosses me as if I'm reading a book. Okay. And RPGs do that for me. They do that for me in the realm of, hey, here's this group. And usually it's the same formula. The end of the world's coming. Here's this group of friends. Yep. They're going to go and challenge, like in Chrono Trigger, they're going to go challenge Lavos and essentially try to save the world. Where this started changing for me as I got older was I found one series I have it written down as the one series I will always play no matter how old I get, even if it's for, a couple of hours. It is the Shin Megami Tensei series from Atlas Games. I talked about on the show before. I mentioned how that is how I became interested in the occult. And that's kind of how the cryptozoology, we talk about whatever we want to talk about on Fridays, kind of came to fruition. Good?
Yeah.
So that game, Persona 3 in particular, basically it's a dungeon crawler. And I normally don't like dungeon crawlers. But the game was kind of mixed like a dating sim. And if you've played any Japanese dating sims and social and not the pervy kinds.
Oh, I had all the pervy kinds.
On the hubs.
Nasty time.
Like Hina-chan or whatever the hell her name is. Not those.
Mr. Nasty time.
That's Friday show, bro. We talk about that on Friday. But it was part RPG, part dating sim, and social links and things like that. And it had a banging soundtrack. Thank you, Shoji Meguro, who is one of my favorite game composers of all time. It got me wanting to play those types of games. Right. So for me, like you said, you were talking about, you have to feel a connectivity to it. You have to be connected to the actual game. The source material makes you interested.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes that was for me, that one specifically was just very relatable because it had so many different aspects to it. But no, we've had for so long, we had games that we could not relate to, but I still consider them up there. I can't fucking relate to a little blonde haired, blue eyed boy running around in a fucking green loincloth with a sword and and a shield. I can't relate to that, but I still consider it to be one of the GOAT games. It was just that one specifically that
and Link, for anyone who doesn't know what he's talking about Link.
Yes. Yes, and for those of you that are not familiar with the series, the boy is Link, the girl is Zelda.
Yes.
I did
Zelda
not know that
is
for
the
a long time.
princess.
Yes.
Everybody.
I played all the way through the fucking Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past, and I was still calling Link Zelda way after I had been looking at Princess Zelda talk to me all that time. I was still like, oh yeah, that's Zelda. I'm fucking
I know Link can be androgynous, but no, he is not Zelda. Side note: when you play him in Smash Brothers, the only vocal patterns they gave him were his grunts, which I don't understand. They just gave him grunts. That's just stupid. But so for me, that is GOAT game. I know Eugene said NBA Live '98. The last NBA.
Never entered an NBA game, so
I did 2K in college. I did 2K. NBA Live as a kid for the Sega Genesis. Yeah, I could play NBA Live 95 all day, every day because the Knicks were probably the second best team in the whole game.
Nah, for me, I couldn't play those at all. Only one I could play was NBA Jam. He's on fire.
Yes.
Boom shakalaka.
And when you play it now, you kind of like in arcades, you kind of think this was fucking corny.
Oh yeah, it was corny, but that I will say this. I'm gonna end up saying this a lot on this podcast. Certain shit can only exist in certain time periods. You cannot, like, they brought back NBA Jam a couple years ago.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Wasn't good.
Nope.
It doesn't hold up. Some shit just only works in the time period when it comes out due to whatever the culture is at the time, right? Like, if you took Grand Theft Auto and you took that and put that back, it would not survive in the way that it does now. No, like if you take Grand Theft Auto,
the first one,
yeah, the first one, or like whatever, and then take it back to the 90s, like take it back to like 1992, right? It's not gonna work in 1992.
No,
it just wouldn't work in 1992. So like some shit just can work back then, but yeah, as far as like football games and shit like that, I had a bunch of Madden games as a kid. My mom was like, "Oh yeah, you like football?" No, I don't.
Thanks, Mom.
So I would just always just end up playing the all Madden team and run all the way back to, my own goal and then go back. Because
was this Tecmo Bowl?
Basically, like, because I had the fastest fucking people on that goddamn all-star team.
True.
So, but yeah, so like like I said, some stuff can only exist in certain time periods, and NBA Jam was absolutely one of those things that could only exist in the 90s due to the culture of the 90s, because that was one of the most 90s things.
Oh yeah,
possible. Like boom shakalaka, like all that shit. Just like take shit from like the 80s, Spuds McKenzie and shit like that. Like you had a bunch of stuff. Alf could only fucking exist in those. No,
Alf couldn't make it.
Alf couldn't make it now. Alf would make it maybe 3 episodes before going off air, especially if he's on Fox.
Oh yeah.
So like there is not like it just wouldn't work. It wouldn't work, right? Like the 80s puppets and shit was still popular because the fucking Muppet Show was still a hit, which actually kind of still holds up too. But like, yeah, it could only exist in the 80s because you couldn't have, because a lot of those shows disappeared from prime time.
Yes.
Those disappeared in the 90s. You didn't have those in the 90s. Like hell, what, Harry and the Hendersons? Like that only last.
That was on Fox, wasn't it?
I think that was on Fox, right? And it didn't last long.
No.
Right. So like a lot of these things, it was very much a product of the 80s because everybody loved fuzzy aliens and shit like that. The amount of like ridiculous knockoff ET movies that came out in the 80s. Look, Mac and Me has given us some of the most amazing memes nowadays.
Of course.
But back then, big trash. There were 1,002 ET knockoffs because they were easy to make. All you need is some people to play summer camp folks and really badly put together alien. But anyhow, back to video games. Yeah, some stuff can only exist at certain times, and Final Fantasy VII is one of them.
Okay, so we disagree on this, but I'm curious as to tell the audience why you feel like it can only exist in 1997.
Okay, it can only thrive in 1997 because you have to take into like how they remade it now, right?
Yes.
So right now it's like 36 hours, right?
For a part of the game.
For part of the game. Still part of the game, but how are they into it? Like only half or how many hours?
Midgar. They just got off the first level.
Okay, the first. Yeah. So like as it is now, right? Most games that get put out, if you're going to put out something that's going to have that many gigabytes, that's going to take up that much space, people are going to expect more gameplay, right? So right now, 36 hours. Average game now, 96 hours.
96. But that's an entire RPG.
Right, yeah.
This is episodic.
This is episodic, correct, right? But like but with that, also like the character design, the storytelling, all of those things are very much hallmarks of storytelling of the 90s, right? So people that have gone back and played it now, most of the people played this back in the day. And they're like, oh yeah, this is good. You know, I love this game. It was amazing. But when you have the younger generation, or the people that did not play this growing up, that have gotten into video games as adults, they're going back and like, it's all right. It's
like,
cool.
I don't see it. Like people are saying, I don't see it.
I don't see it. Yeah, like it's not that big of a deal. And the thing is, this was the first time that we got to see a genuinely 3D RPG for the masses. That was the first time that we got to see that. So that in and of itself is one of the reasons why the fucking series, because like Final Fantasy's been out since forever. It has been on, because it was on the NES?
It was on the Nintendo, yes.
Yeah, it was on the NES, SNES, basically every single Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, all of them shits, right? So it's not like Final Fantasy was a new series, but this was the first time that we got to see 3D, right?
Right.
And it was like, ooh, it's 3D, but it wasn't all that, for me, it wasn't all that great. Like it's the story's good. The story's good, but like there was nothing that was like, oh yeah, this is amazing. And I was just like,
Well, because when you and I have known about it, so when you look at the current story still being played out back in 1997, for instance, the gym, the very shady gym where everyone's hitting on Cloud, or where they took out the brothel scene from this Final Fantasy VII, because back then he could be surrounded by a bunch of dudes in underwear and it was okay. You do it now because Japan has a weird sense of humor. So
yeah, that's a different topic. That's a different day. We're gonna talk about that one because
Japan's weird fetishes and senses of humor,
and the reasoning behind a lot of it. Like one of the things, to put it as simply as possible.
Yes.
Even though it's an insanely complex thing, when you have a society that is so restrictive and conservative,
yes,
they will act out in mediums that you would not expect, right? So when you can only be this specific thing, they will act out in their art. And that's what you see a lot in around the world, no matter where you go to. People will be like super, okay, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. But you go and look at their art that they make, and it's like, ooh, nasty. So yeah,
like hentai.
Yeah, hentai is absolutely one of those things. But that's a whole. That's a
right.
Whole,
that's a Friday. That's a Friday discussion.
That's a Friday discussion. That's a whole rabbit hole that you can go down. Actually, very informative too. It's not as nasty as you would expect it to be, but it is the actual history as to how it came to be is actually quite interesting. But yeah, like a lot of the things that you could get away with in the 90s, you cannot get away with now, right? A lot of the humor that was accepted in the 90s, you can't do that.
I will give you that. You're right.
You can't get away with that now.
Mhm.
One of the things, since we're talking about this, one of the tropes that I hated, even as a kid, I never understood it, why queer characters were always evil. Any character that was evil was almost always coded as queer. And that was a serious fucking issue because what you intake messes, it starts to mold your subconscious. So if you're a kid playing, you see on TV shows, the evil guy is almost always had some effeminate type of characteristics. You play your video games, they always would have effeminate characteristics, or their poses would be very effeminate and things of that nature. So you're going to grow up and be like, oh yeah, queer people are evil. You know what I'm saying? Like when you constantly have that type of stuff. So yeah, that's one of the things that I hated about stuff in the 90s, because it's like, this doesn't make any sense. It's very similar in the same vein of how I complained about like Law and Order, how when you watched it in the 90s, it was always the evil people were always people of color. Same thing here, especially in a lot of anime, JRPGs, all these things. You can go fucking Samurai Showdown. One of the boss characters that they had was
Amaxa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, was very much was coded as queer, but was evil as fuck. Mm-hmm. So many of the characters that you have, like if we're going with Hunter x Hunter, his name.
And to be quiet, and to be fully transparent, I did not know the actual gender of Amakusa or Amaxa, depending on who's saying it, until maybe about 10 years ago.
Right.
And that game's been out for a long time. So
Hisoka Moro on like is a very effeminate, androgynous character. So like that's one of the things you saw a lot in anime and video games, and we have to talk about it in video games because a good amount of these RPGs were Japanese RPGs.
Yeah.
So a lot of those subconscious things that like issues that they were having with queer people and such bled into the games, which then bled into the Western world. So whole toxic aspect of it that I was like, yeah.
Well, to that effect, and we can save this for Friday if you want to keep talking about it. Final Fight. Poison is a trans woman.
Yep.
But when they brought it over to America,
no trans.
Oh no, she's trans here. What is she trans here? Or is she trans
no, she was trans there. So it was speaking of trans, it was a translation fuck up. I think happened amongst things, but like the verbiage that they use in Japan, she was trans, but over here, I think she's just female.
Okay.
So. And that's been like a thing. So first it was like a mistake, and then they played into it, and then like a lot of the poses and like the dialogue she had over here would basically like poke fun of what this was over time. But yeah, like it's a whole issue with like queer characters in video games are almost never treated with respect, right? Like they are either the evil antagonist, or they are comic relief.
So according to Street Fighter 4's producer, basically Ono said Poison is officially a post-op transsexual woman.
Right.
Officially.
And over here, they're like, nah.
You couldn't have that. So you would rather... So basically, that was a conundrum when it was ported over here, where you either have the main characters beating up on a transsexual woman, or just beating a woman.
Right.
In America, because back when Final Fight came out was 1992, so
yeah,
there was a differentiation. We couldn't just say it's a woman. No, like you can't beat up a woman in a video game.
Oh yeah,
we have Chun-Li.
Yeah,
they're beating up a girl in a video game.
Yeah. Like, and like the other thing too that I used to hate about video games, like, and for me, how I tend to discredit video games is if they do not treat certain demographics of people properly.
Yes.
And one of the things that I used to like, I never understood was like why there were so few women in video games. You know, like even look at Mortal Kombat. There was only one woman in Mortal Kombat on like the first game. You had Sonya Blade, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like women can't be. So like it sets up a whole bunch of the BS that we have now with some of these ignorant groups of people. But yeah, like you had a bunch of different stuff when it came to
Eugene. To we will go down the history. Eugene, tonight might not be that night, but we will definitely go down the history of this because it's fascinating now that DEO and I are talking about it. The lengths that video game producers went and developers went to not put strong female characters who weren't eye candy or the damsel in distress.
Right.
Marion from Double Dragon comes to mind, where you literally see her get knocked out in the first frame of the game, and she's carried off on a dude's shoulders, and you have to rescue her. And might I add, Technos of Japan, you on purpose showed a sliver of her panty.
Yeah.
In 1987.
Yeah.
Why?
Like even we can go to, since we'll talk about the 80s. Let's talk about Metroid.
Samus Aran. Thank you very much.
Right. So one, people thought that Samus was a guy just because it's kind of like it's one of those things. Okay, the hero's almost is we've been trained to think the hero is a man, right? And usually not just a man, but a white man.
Yes.
Just because look at a lot of video games, even in Japan, you can look at the video game characters or even in anime. There are a lot of the characters, they look like white people. This is a whole issue. But like, so it's a lot of times we'll just say that it's a man. But with Metroid, with Samus Aran, the further you got in the game, more of the armor came off until you beat the game and all the armor comes off and it's revealed that this is a woman. So like, I remember when this as a kid, that was like, oh my gosh, clutching my pearls. There's a woman. I've been playing as a woman this whole time. And like, even if you look at the way that women were dressed in games, right?
Right.
Even with so take Streets of Rage.
Blaze Fielding.
Yeah, like she is out there looking like she is about to go to the club. High heel shoes, all that. But then you look at Axel and everybody else in the game, and they look like they came here to fight.
Yeah.
So like even hell, look at Chun-Li compared to the other competitors in Street Fighter. Can't have a female character unless she is sexy. And like that still goes to this day. Like one of the reasons that I hate the current crop of Street Fighter games is the fact that like the women are wildly over sexualized.
Yeah.
Like insanely so. And by comparison to the men, right? Like you look at the dudes, of course, yes, it is very hyper masculine and stuff like that, but a lot of them are fully covered up. Look at the female characters, it's ridiculous. Like
all I gotta say is Laura. That's it.
And the fucking titty mechanics are ridiculous.
They got that from Dead or Alive.
They put so much time and effort into making sure boobs bounce just right in a game when they could be fixing the glaring issues that they have in like their net code for when they do multiplayer over the internet and other things. But instead, titty jiggle.
Yep. I think they called it like there was a specific term for it. Jiggle something. Jiggle physics. When they were doing the Dead or Alive series. This is the thing, Japan. I don't understand. I want to get more into this on Friday. So we'll put a pin in this for now. But I don't understand the necessity for that.
Yeah.
And just in general, we were talking originally about GOAT games, greatest of all time video games here on Damian and DEO, YouTube, Anchor.fm. I just want to say that Street Fighter is up there when it comes to fighting games because if you remember the original Street Fighter, that shit was horrible.
Yeah.
And then they made a second one, and not for nothing, Dalsim got a real raw deal. Just an FYI. Dalsim got a raw deal because one, he's the lightest character of the men. He's like 110 pounds, right?
Yeah.
But he's also the slowest.
Yeah. But if you knew, once you figured out how to use him, though, it was fucking terrifying.
Well,
like, I remember the first time I fought somebody that knew how to use Dalsim, and it was like, nah, fuck this. I hate this dude.
That keep away guy.
Yeah, the keep away guy, but also, so like once you got into like the, you know, hyper editions and shit like that, and they started adding combos and stuff. If Dalsim got you into a corner, that's it. He could hit an unlimited on you and you are fucked. So yeah, it was bad.
So let's go genres before we get out of here. Let's go in your own Mount Rushmore, your own GOAT category of genres that you enjoy in video games. What are your top ones that people should play that mean something to you?
GOAT games in certain things. So of course, play the PlayStation 2 Grand Theft Auto series. So Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. San Andreas is, you will drown hours into that game. For me, as far as racing stuff goes, I'm gonna go my personal GOATs. I'd put Road Rash 3 probably right up there. Because it was partially the characters were digitized. The soundtrack was actually really dope. It had a combat system where you could fight between the characters and such. I really loved it. It was, of course, nostalgia's attached to this as well. And I would, because it's hard to put the three, like, because video games are so drastically different depending on what time, what system, and all these things. So like Sega Genesis, it would be Road Rash 3. If I were to go to like the days of like the PlayStation 2 PC era, I would say Need for Speed Underground is one of my GOAT games. What other GOAT? Oh yeah, Pokemon. As far as like RPGs go, I would say Pokemon. The Pokemon series has been like, was my favorite. I don't want to say it was. What was it? What's the green one that I had back in the day?
Leaf Green.
I'm not sure. It was on Game Boy Advance.
Might be Leaf Green.
But it was, or I think it might have been Emerald. It was Emerald. Yeah, Pokemon Emerald. That was my favorite of the Pokemon games at the time. Love the one that I'm playing now because it's actually everything that I've always wanted a Pokemon game to be. So it's very quickly rising to the top. But I really loved Pokemon Emerald back in the day. And as far as JRPGs go, Pokemon's absolutely my favorite one. Because it's such a varied thing. It's long standing. It is because not only did you have, like, that was one of the first games that had multiplayer in handheld form as well. So like that was, for me, that was a game changer. Like that was one of the first mainstream games that we had where I could take my Game Boy, plug it into your Game Boy, and I could fuck you up because I've got level 100 Pokemon you have, and you've got level 52. So like, yeah, but
get wrecked.
Get wrecked a lot. So yeah, like that was for me, that was one of my GOAT. It's a GOAT series just because it changed, that literally changed. Not only did it change video game society, it changed cartoon society as well. Because that is the reason, Pokemon's the reason why Animaniacs never came back.
Some people would say Pokemon is the reason why Saturday morning cartoons died. Because nothing could compete with Pokemon. So a lot of networks didn't feel the need to actually do any other
it wasn't competing, it was all money, right? So they basically got the license for Pokemon for free. So because Pokemon was already produced It was already done in Japan. They were like, yo, here, take it. Because we're going to get all this fucking money back when these kids start playing Pokemon. So a lot of the shows that were on WB back in the day and all that type of stuff. So those things would cost like a couple mil per season.
Yeah.
And you could get something for free. Fuck out of here. So it's less so Pokemon, them not being able to compete. It was money. Everything, especially like a lot of the shit that got canceled as far as like cartoons and stuff, all had to do with money. Because thing that people don't seem to like know or realize is that a lot of that stuff caught like episodes to get drawn, and animated costs a ton of money.
Yes.
So Pokemon is a GOAT for so many other reasons.
So many things.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'd say that would be my favorite JRPG. What is something else that I can just play?
Were you a Sonic or a Mario guy?
Sonic. Sonic. It was just that style of gameplay just was better for me. But honestly, if I'm gonna go side scroll, I'm gonna go Mega Man. If I had to choose in the Mega Man series, Mega Man X was that was my shit. I had a whole, so like at the beginning of the year, my mom was like, you'd have to go and do our shopping for what you need for your class, because you go to school the first day, you get the list, and then you go and you buy shit, right?
Buy Mega Man.
No, not buy Mega Man. I had to buy another notebook so I could write down my fucking codes for Mega Man each time I got further and further. So, yeah, that's
dedication, bro.
Bro, I had, because like, where else am I gonna write this shit? I'm not gonna fucking remember this goddamn 16-digit number. It's a letter and number situation. So, yeah, for me, Mega Man would have been as far as like those side scroller type things, of those three. My favorite of those type of like run and gun style things, Gunstar Heroes on
Sega Genesis.
Gunstar Heroes was my shit. If I don't let me get the fucking star projectiles that went in a circle, I will run through the whole game with that once I get it. That was one. Trying to think what else I had growing up as a kid. Oh yeah, another racing game would be Mario Kart. It's fun.
Which I told you off air, I am not into. I just can't.
I mean, it's not for everybody, but it is. If you, there were very few like multiplayer racing games that came out in that era, right? And this is the so like on the N64 specifically, because it came with 4 ports, you didn't have to buy no other extra shit to add more controllers to it and whatnot. So like you had this phenomenon of like 4, so there would be 4 cubes in the screen. So how our screen is 2 right now. Yes. So you put another line down the middle, so you have 4 screens on this shit, and each person had a different screen, right? Of course, I probably still have that in some games now, but like that was the first time that we got shit like that. So like we're all playing the same time. This is around the same time as fucking GoldenEye.
Oh
yeah. So people would just sit around playing GoldenEye for fucking hours. Like we would start playing, say we did a sleepover at somebody's house. We would start playing at like 11 in the morning, 10, 11 in the morning, and go until like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Almost nonstop. So yeah, things were different back then.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we used to be able to play video games for 7 hours fucking a day, and nobody would bat an eyelash. I've never played GoldenEye. I was never an N64 guy. I didn't own one. I did not own an N64. I have an emulator now, and I can play it on my tablet. And if I really, No Mercy is probably the one I probably have played.
No Mercy is my shit. Yeah.
I've never played any of the WCW N64 games. Just, for the wrestling fans out there, just no, don't really care. But if I'm going to go GOAT status for me before we get out of here on Damian and DEO, I just want to say, okay, racing games. I don't really like them, but my favorite racing game would be Midnight Club 3 Dub Edition Remix. Only because it has everything that we've talked about. Gameplay, customization, music, and replayability.
The Atlanta track was fucking terrible though.
Yeah.
Because I live here. So I'm like.
So you understand it.
There was no, I live here. So like they had a specific thing. They had a landmark that I lived like maybe 4 or 5 miles away from, the Big Chicken. Which if you.
There's a Big Chicken?
Oh, yeah. There's a gigantic KFC.
Oh.
That was.
Oh, dear. So I learn something new every day, I swear.
Yeah, the Big Chicken is a landmark in Marietta, Georgia. It is a massive KFC. That's the best way to really say it.
But it's called the Big Chicken?
Or
is it just? Oh, goodness.
It's called the Big. Like that's like if you are in Marietta, everybody gives their like all of the stuff that like if you're giving directions to anybody in Marietta.
Big Chicken
is like, all right. So you go to Big Chicken, you keep, like it is one of those things. This is the Big Chicken.
What is this?
This is the Big Chicken. And the beak moves up and down. It actually opens and closes.
Wow, that's an actual KFC.
It's an actual KFC. The worst KFC on the planet, mind you. The service is terrible. It's trash. So
it's a bird. Like it's got wow.
Yeah. So initially it wasn't that. So it's gone through like a couple different phases over time. When I was a kid, back when I was, playing video games and stuff, it was just a chicken. It didn't move. It was just a red, large red thing, but it was hollow. Bad idea. Because birds used to sit up on the top of it.
Oh, yeah.
And what do you think happened then?
A lot of bird shit.
So much bird shit that it actually collapsed the ceiling. Yep. And mind you, all this time, all this bird shit had been affecting food. You know what I'm saying? Contaminating.
Oh, so it wasn't even sanitary. Oh, no. It wasn't sanitary,
yeah. So it was so much. There was so much bird shit that they just bulldozed the whole thing. They just demolished the whole thing. And just started from scratch to what we have now. So the Big Chicken, right? So you've seen what the Big Chicken looks like there.
Yes.
The Big Chicken.
It's not even that there's a building that looks like that. For me, it's the fact that it's actually called the Big Chicken.
I mean, Southern folks aren't that creative when it comes to.
It's like when Norman Smiley and the Big Wiggle. No.
Yeah. Let me see if I can find a picture of the shit. But it's bad. I remember when I was like, when I was playing it, I'm like, what the fuck is this? What is this? This is not the Big Chicken. That is I don't know what the fuck this. Can't find a picture. It anyhow, it was terrible. But still, that racing, the like the controls, all that stuff, I fucking loved it.
Loved it.
When they brought it to like the PlayStation 3, I didn't really like it all that much.
It played better elsewhere. Yeah.
Elsewhere. There were a lot of things that control systems shouldn't have been messed with, or it just doesn't work. Like how I said some stuff just can only exist in one, in one era. This was one of those ones where it's like, damn, yeah, it can only exist in one.
So that's a good question that I have, and it's going to run us a little over time, but I'm going to say this. Fighting games. This is why I'm going to segue into this question for you. You mentioned that about ports and licenses that didn't do well in other game systems. Def Jam, Fight for New York, and Def Jam Vendetta.
Two of my favorite fighting games of all time.
Same. And then when they brought it over as Icon to PS3,
that was
sucked.
It was bad. They changed developers.
Yes.
There's a whole bunch of stuff as to why that was a fucking shit show and why they'll never be able to pull that off again.
Nope.
Just because everybody would want way too much money. There are also so many rappers now that they couldn't all like
be in the game.
Yeah, back then you had like maybe 10 big rappers at the time. That was it. So that's how you could have all of those big names on one thing at one time. But they got the raw end of the fucking deal back then. They basically didn't get paid for the fucking game and shit, most of them.
Right.
So a lot of the folks that were in it again, Joe Budden has said he will never fucking go into that game again. They would have to give him a big bag. Snoop Dogg is like legendary status now. He's gonna want an insane amount of money. And like whatever the hot young rapper, like there's a new young hot rapper every month, basically. A new one shows up, a new NBA, a new YBN, you know, NWC,
Lil whoever, yeah.
Lil whomsoever, Lil Tide Pod.
Is there one called Lil Tide Pod? Because I feel like there needs to be one called Lil Corona.
I can guarantee there's a Lil Corona now. There's either a Lil or a young
Corona
right now, and spelled Y-U-N-G.
Young Rona.
young Rona. Like, yeah, there's probably a rapper that has like COVID-19 tattooed on their face right now.
That's gonna be someone's kid. You know that, right? They're gonna name their kid fucking COVID.
Listen, you and I both have been around Dominicans a lot in our lifetime.
Yes, sir.
You already know that there is going to be a, Infante coronavirus.
COVID. They're going to call him COVID. They're going to make him Latino. COVID.
So, like, you're going to have something like that. So, like, there was it's either going to be Dominicans or Cubans. It's one of the two. But you're going to see, like, a lot of folks that are going to get named that. But, yeah, like, it could only exist in its time.
And so Def Jam, the fighting games, could only exist back then.
Yeah.
I agree. I think if you took the engine that they use, the Aki engine, I think that could still work.
If they did that and put it on like the Switch or have it as like a game, like I know one of the games that's popular amongst fighting game folks right now is the Power Rangers fighting game. When it first came out, it was stupid because you had to pay per character. So you would get like 2 characters and then you'd have to pay for each character after that. So like you would end up spending like a stupid amount of money for all of the characters. So, but like if you did something in that vein, whereas, you have this game, graphics aren't amazing or anything like that. You just have it as like a downloadable thing, kind of like how Streets of Rage is a downloadable thing.
Right.
Put a price tag of $15-$20 on it, people are going to buy the fuck out of that shit.
Of course they are.
Have DLC, people will happily pay for the DLC for that stuff. So
and yes, Eugene, Sean Paul was broken because he countered everything.
Everything. For me, it was I forgot who I used at the time, but it was always a back grapple. I would just make sure that I was fast enough to get behind him, grapple, and that was the only way that I was, because he would counter the fuck out of me all the time. It's fucking terrible.
And he said there's twins named COVID and Corona.
Absolutely. Already. Yeah. It was gonna happen. It was gonna happen.
That's ignorant. Ignorant. That's not even ignorant. That's ignorant.
Yeah. So like it's very much what I love for it to come back. Fucking absolutely.
Yes.
But just the way that the music industry works now and gaming as well, I don't think it will be as big of a hit as it was back then. Because the thing that we have, this is the other thing that we have now that we have never had before, was an abundance of content. And that's on all platforms of art, whether it be video games, music, television, movies. There is not you can't go to any of these things and say there's a dearth of this. Like you have a ton of stuff. Like there is more music being released now than in 1 year. I would venture to say in 1 year, there was probably more music released than probably in some decades. Because now everybody basically has a studio in their pocket. Everybody can create a SoundCloud. Everybody can put stuff on. So like you have an insane, like if you go in, like go on SoundCloud and start typing in just letters, and you'll see the insane amount of artists that's on there. Everybody's looking for a break. You know what I'm saying? So like same thing with movies and television. There's so much of it. So it's hard. Things that were special back then, there's so much stuff that it's hard to even find those special things unless it has a big studio behind it or somebody picks it as like a pet project and like really is like, yo, this is the best thing on earth. You know, some vlogger or you know, some YouTube personality that's like, oh man, go play this. It's amazing, right? Because otherwise, things that were special aren't really all that special.
That goes back to what we've always said about nostalgia being the thing that brings you back to it. So, for instance, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is being remastered. I'm
playing the fuck out of that. No,
but I know a crap ton of people will be playing the hell out of that game when it comes back out.
I already pre-ordered it. Okay. That was another thing, another one. Amazing soundtracks. I can still remember to this day in basically like what's like the first stage or like that you use as like the practice stage, and B-Boy Document comes on, and I would just sit there and I could play that for like I would go in and turn off all the other songs and I'll just have just that one. You know what I'm saying? Like I could just play just that over and over and over and over and over again. And yeah, that was great. That was great. But yeah,
as we finish up here, I'm just going to say, okay, so racing is Midnight Club. Fighting games, I would say for me, the best fighting wrestling game hybrid is Def Jam Fight for New York. I will go back and play that. That's one of my goats.
Absolutely.
Fighting games in general, I was always a Street Fighter guy, but I do appreciate what Mortal Kombat has become.
Yes.
I would rather play a Mortal Kombat game now than I did when Mortal Kombat first came out. And I know people have told me Mortal Kombat 1 does not age well. No, it does not, because it was similar to what we talked about Pit Fighter a couple of weeks ago. The digitized graphics for 1992 were fine, but it couldn't really work now. So sports games, look, man, I will always go back and I'll play, well, call it a wrestling game. For me, a sports game could be a wrestling game. No, correction. Here's my GOAT sports game. It's old. Sega Genesis. Mutant League Football.
Yo. Yes.
I suggest anyone who can get themselves a Genesis emulator or the Genesis, pick a Mutant League Football. It used the Madden engine from 1993. That game was addictive as hell. You had trolls, you had skeletons, you had aliens and robots and mutagenic humans.
It's gonna look like shit now because it was meant for CRTs. Just so that you guys know, it was meant for CRTs, but the gameplay is fucking amazing. I got another one for you.
Go ahead.
Saturday Night Slam Masters.
I've played it. I have it on my Super Nintendo. That's where Mike Hagar kind of made another comeback. Yep. That's my sports go-to sports game. No matter how old I get, I can go back and play. It's that one. If we're talking hockey, NHL PA 93, only because there's a way to score on the goalie 85% of the time. Deke right, fake left, shoot left.
Yep.
Top shelf. You score all the fucking time. So that. RPGs, I've said it. The Persona series is my favorite RPG series. But if we're going to say game, my favorite RPG game to go back and play, it's probably going to be Persona 3.
Okay.
I love 4. I love 5. I was more connected to the Persona 3 characters. Because, spoilers, the main character sacrifices himself for the world, and they make him into this Judeo-Christian kind of sacrificial. And then there's a second part where the robot girlfriend becomes sentient. It's beautiful. Plus, it had a really good soundtrack.
Oh yeah, there's a Mutant League hockey too.
Yes, I played that. I like it, but but the football was better, and basketball was supposed to come out,
right?
But they cut funding to the Genesis and Super Nintendo right when the basketball one was going to be made because they had a cartoon called Mutant League, and KT Slayer was the main basketball player.
Oof, I fucking remember that shit. God
Bones damn. Justice, when he was Bones Jackson, he became Bones Justice.
Yo. And so the other thing too is
we're gonna review that show next week.
One of the things people don't realize is like EA Sports basically ran video games.
They ran it
in the 90s. Like they put out a majority of the games that came out all came through EA. Like they had a stranglehold on it. And I'm pretty sure that's why they started the whole DLC thing and like stuck with it, because they went from being the number one to being on the back burner. And they, so it was like, oh no, we got to make that money back. We got to stay, we got to keep that capital high. But yeah, damn, fucking Mutant League.
Yep. If we go back to the Genesis Super Nintendo era, EA Sports had things on lockdown.
Nobody, they were unfuckwittable. It was.
Yep. Sega tried with Joe Montana football. They tried with that MLB licensing for the Sega sponsored games. Nah, man.
What was the fucking? It was like a channel that you bought. Was it Sega TV?
There was a Sega TV.
Yeah, so I remember it was like a system. It was like a channel that you could have, and it was like. So it was
it reminds me of all these add-ons that Genesis had, the 32X, the Sega CD. Remember the Nomad?
Yeah. So wow, yes, the fucking Nomad. Fucking Game Gear was the worst.
Worst.
Awesome. So like it was all right. When the Game Boy first came out, right? That was the first like really the brick. And the shit that like I will die on this hill. Still one of the best handhelds ever. Fucking battery life. The battery life on that shit was insane. You could put 4 batteries in that shit. Of course, the back would disappear and you never had it again. So we're running around with 4 batteries. Then we take cardboard and put it over that, and then you tape over the cardboard, right? And like those batteries would last you like a fucking year, like the whole time. And you would play that shit like crazy. Sitting there playing fucking Tetris. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah. So like we had that, and then like
fucking Tetris.
So Nintendo had its own handheld, and so of course they're like, "Oh, Sega's like, we got to come out with one too." Battery life was dog shit.
It was shit.
The thing about it was color. The screen was in color.
Yes.
So like. It was like, what? I could carry around a TV screen with me? What?
You could put the attachment antenna on top of it.
Mind you, this shit is huge. Like, I think it might actually have been bigger than my fucking Switch. That is relatively large, right?
Probably true.
But like, this shit was huge. The battery life on it was hours at best.
6 hours tops.
With the and I'm saying with the fucking volume at its lowest that you can that is audible, right? Sit there, play that shit for fucking. You got maybe 3.5 hours if you're really going at it.
Right? I only own 2 Game Gear games.
I couldn't have one of my friends let me borrow his Game Gear while he went. Where was it? They went back to Vietnam, and his mom didn't want him to take it. They're like, "Oh yeah, you could use it for the." So yeah, I played it then. Fucking terrible, dog shit. But it's just like, oh my god, like to a kid that like this was like fucking manna from heaven. Like I felt like I had touched the Holy Grail.
Yes.
It was fucking amazing.
A color video game system before the Game Boy Color
system. Because like this is what you guys don't understand, right? So you know how you have iPhone games now?
Yes.
What we had were these cheap, like $5 games that you would get, that they would be at like Walmart or the supermarket, and like it would be Street Fighter, right? But you could only pick Ryu and Ken, and you would just see like there was no animation, so everything was preset essentially. So like when
are you talking about the Tiger electronic
games?
Oh my god!
So like you sit there and like it would punch. You could move forward, and like there was nothing smooth, so you'd see block, disappear, and then it's here, and then fireball, and
then the Game & Watch games were too. The Game & Watch LCD games.
They were so bad. It was so, okay. Matter of fact, if you have a Casio watch, right? Same type of technology, basically. How you see how the numbers move. Imagine that, but video game characters.
Yep. Stiff, no fluidity.
Horrible, no fluidity. Like there was no real. You're not really fighting against anything. Like there's no AI to it. It's all preset. It's terrible. Like they would have Contra, and so those were our iPhone games of the time.
Yes, those were our iPhone games.
Where the Tiger electronic shits, fucking hated them with a passion. My mom would get me them for my birthday because they were cheap, so she would get me those. And for Christmas, I'm like, I don't want these. I'm not gonna play it. I'm letting you know this now. I'm going to get it. I'm going to use it for 5 minutes, and I'm never going to play this thing again.
At least you're honest.
I was like, I was like, she's like, oh, you're ungrateful. I was like, why would you, if you know I'm not going to use it, why would you even buy it? I'd rather not get anything.
Right.
But yeah, that was fucking those things. Yeah.
Like, so before we go, what is your longest lasting memory from a game you hate?
Longest lasting game from a game that I hate?
Yes. Like despise. You despise this game that you've played.
That I've played that I hated. That's a tough one actually. Because I've hated a lot of games. But like which one where I was like,
So think about it, you've invested time. You thought like you got it, you played it, you invested a little bit of time, and then after a while you just realize I hate this fucking game.
Yeah, no, I can't think of any where I was like, yo, I hate this game and I just never played it anymore. Oh, The Rocketeer. There you go.
Oh, okay, not Rocket Knight Adventures, The Rocketeer.
The Rocketeer, as in the video game that came along with the movie.
Bad. Ooh, that was bad. For the Super Nintendo, that was bad.
Because it was the first fucking stage you had to win a race around this pole thing. I could never fucking get the shit. It took me years to do that. Like I would rage quit so often on that game. And it's not a good game because like even once you get past that and you make it to wherever, to the actual thing, trash. It was a horrible game. I hated it. I wish I could burn down if I could go back in time, I would burn down the publisher's building so that they could not develop that dog shit bullshit game. It is horrible. It was bad, and it should feel bad. Yes.
Okay, so I'm gonna say game I hate, even though I know I could be good at it now. Arnold Palmer Golf for the Sega Genesis. I fucking hated that game because it had an annoying theme song and it was trash. That was one. For the Super Nintendo, I could tell you, and I'm going to offend a lot of people who love the series. Aside from the first board in Star Fox, I hate Star Fox.
I like it was so once the novelty of it wore off.
Yes, it's not a good shooter.
It's
not a good shooter.
It didn't become good until the N64.
Right.
That was it. Until you had actual 3-dimensional technology, it just didn't work. It just didn't work.
Yep. For PlayStation, I would say, wow, that's tough. PlayStation, X-Men versus Street Fighter is one of the worst games I've ever played for the PlayStation. I had the Sega Saturn one with the actual modded system where you play the Japanese one. That was good.
Yeah, there was a bunch.
Machine Head. There was a game called Machine Head for PS1. I fucking hated it because I told my dad X-Men and he brought me back Machine Head, which I don't understand how you make the comparison.
Hey, it was probably cheaper. It's probably cheaper.
That's exactly what it was. It was like $15.
What was the other thing?
And Bad Dudes.
Bad Dudes.
I hate Bad Dudes.
We had such generic back in the day.
And Ghouls and Goblins or whatever the fuck it goes by now. Ghosts and Goblins.
That was so hard though.
That's why I hated it. It was fucking hard.
It was hard, but it was still fun. To me, it was fun, right? So it was challenging. Like I wanted to beat it. That's what that was for me. You know, as a game series that I never understood, Oddworld Abe's Odyssey.
Yep, they lost me there too.
I like folks like this is amazing. I was like, yo, it's not. Y'all smoking crack. This is not good.
Well, because it's a rip of the Lost Vikings.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yes, Eugene. You didn't know X-Men versus Street Fighter was a thing?
Yeah,
that's where Marvel versus Capcom.
That's where Marvel versus Capcom comes from. Like they took a gamble. They took a gamble and it fucking blew up because if you don't have that, you don't have Capcom versus SNK. Nope. You don't have
any versus fighters.
No Capcom versus Tatsunoko. No Capcom versus Tekken.
Street Fighter Cross Tekken, right?
Like you don't have any of these crossover games that we have now. Right? Yeah.
So I would say that's. Yeah. Yes, Eugene, that was a thing. And to be quite honest, the first game in that series is X-Men Children of the Atom.
Great.
And it was a great game. And then they took the sprites from that game and took the sprites from Street Fighter Alpha 2 and threw them, or Street Fighter Alpha, and threw them in a versus game and made it all stylized.
Yep.
And I found out yesterday, ironically enough, the reason why Charlie's in that game and not Guile is because they didn't want to reanimate a new Guile. They said, screw it. Charlie's already in here.
Yep.
Pulling all the sprites from Street Fighter Alpha. We're not doing Guile. And by the way, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, I don't know what happened to you. I don't know why you failed on so many levels. But when they had the first Marvel vs. Capcom 3, I was disappointed. Ultimate MVC 3, okay. The other one, I just couldn't. You lost me.
Yep. No, they went away from you have a thing, since some of you may be watching the Last Dance.
Yeah.
Right. Jerry Krause consistently wanted to fuck up. I don't know why he got it in his head that he needed to blow up the perfect team, perfect formula. They blew it. And this is what happened here. They blew up a perfect game already. So but shout out to one of the best games of all time. Urges, whatever the fuck you want to call it. God Save the Ring. It is amazing and trash, and it was
because we got to use Final Fantasy characters in a fighting game. That's why we were all amped for it.
Yeah, it was
Urges, I guess, is the way they pronounce it.
We'll have to bring up some of the next week. We'll have to talk about some of the great fighting games that we had back in the day, like that have been forgotten to time, like Toshinden and
Battle Arena Toshinden. Ooh.
Yeah,
Bloody Roar.
Bloody Roar was so far ahead of its damn time. Damn.
But that's next Monday. So for next Monday, I'm going to put out this so the audience knows. We're going to discuss fighting games of yesteryear that seem to have been forgotten, right? And we said we were going to review something. So I'll go back and re-listen to it. It was the Mutant League. I want to watch a couple of episodes of Mutant League.
Oh, no, I still remember them fondly. I know it doesn't hold up.
It doesn't hold up? Okay.
No, it doesn't hold up. I can tell it doesn't hold up. Like, it's so much stuff from like the 90s because you had the guys that were talking like this. There was never like a regular Batman the Animated Series was the
Oh
only
my
one.
God, that's exactly how Lizard, Razor Kid talked.
Yeah, so like everybody was like super hyper, dude. Oh my gosh, man! Like that's why I fucking hate going back to watch. Like I can't watch Ninja Turtles. I can't. I tried, and like when I tell you I was obsessed with Ninja Turtles, obsessed is an understatement. Which the beat 'em up is one of the best beat 'em ups of all time.
Oh, Turtles 4?
Turtles 4, fucking amazing. But I had the full bedroom set. So I had the curtains, the cover, comforter, the wall stickers, like what y'all have now, like the fathead things or whatever. I had those stickers, but Ninja Turtles in the 90s. And they didn't come off easy because when you pulled them shits off, it pulled off the fucking
pull off the
paint and drywall. I had all that shit. I had almost all of the Ninja Turtle toys. I had all of the Ninja Turtle stuffed animals. It was bad. So most of the stuff from the 90s, it just doesn't hold up because
for future reference, y'all.
Stuff in the 90s, the 90s was a very special era because it was when they moved from analog to fully digital, and from the over-the-top antics of the 80s when it came to video games and movies and cartoons to being the more realistic stuff that we have now. So you had this weird transition between all this shit. And that is why so many things could only exist in that time period.
That's actually a really good point. And I think that's pretty much it for here on Damian and DEO. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Thank you for everyone that's going to be listening to this on the podcast on anchor.fm. I will convert this to
well, looks like we got another
video games. I can't wait for my local arcade to open up because once that opens up again, it's unlimited quarters. It's great. Free play, Richardson. Can't wait for you to open up. But other than that, and I'm gonna tell that story about New Year's. Remind me next week. Talk about the New Year's party at Free Play, the video game bar. Just talk about that another day. So for DEO, I'm just DEO on social media. Damian G347 on Twitter and Instagram. The Damian G Show also on Instagram. We will catch you next time. And by the way, wipe your ass, wash your ass, wash your hands, and don't be a dick.
Yep.
There's too